stencils on a cake. Brita has the new range of stencils out, like this cake here I've done with this baby. So that was the stencil used on that cake, and then just enhanced with a little bit of additional royal icing. And the stencils, they come with a piece of netting, which is basically thought to keep the stencil in place when you're applying it to your cake. I have a covered dummy here, and a lot of the stencils don't come in the size that you would need for your cake, and if you want to have a little bit of flexibility where to use the design, I like to prop mine up on a can, like this is just a can of tuna in between in between some non-slip material, because that gives me then the gap in the bottom that I need for the stencil to go on kind of in the center. Like with this particular design, it doesn't matter, because I could you know, have it. No, I just have one problem here, that it's not flat. Like if you cut, like I didn't cut this to size. If you cut that to size, you have a flat surface there. And then I extend the stencil with some parchment paper. You can use regular paper, or you can use acetate. It's just to, rather than just pinning the stencil on, I saved myself a few pin pricks and wrapped the parchment around. And in order to bring the stencil on nice and tight to your cake, it's crucial that you have a nice flat side on your cake or your dummy, because you want it quite tight. The netting is going to help keep it even in place even better. So this is a big piece of mesh. Now I'm just going to have the overhang. So you wrap that quite tight to bring your stencil as close as possible to your cake or your dummy, because if there is any like gaps between the stencil and the side of the cake, your royal icing that you're going to put on is going to bleed under the stencil. And then I'm just going to use a few pins to pin my...
I should say you do actually get a piece of mesh with a stencil. That's included in the price.
Yeah, so if anybody thought that was a bit of a mystery, that who ordered stencils already, that's what they're for. So just pull your mesh nice and tight. So you have your... Because especially when you have those little bridges here, you can see them between the flowers here, and I don't know where there's another one, but this one here, they would stand away if you don't use the mesh over it. So that's your stencil all prepped. And then for the royal icing consistency, you don't want it too liquid, but also like what I have here in my Tupper container is a little bit too dry. Like if I would use that the way it is, it wouldn't adhere well enough to the sugar paste. So I'm just going to take that down with a few drops of water to a consistency where it's just slightly soft peak, but it doesn't run into it doesn't really kind of spread out in it yet. Like it's still quite defined, but soft peak. That's the consistency you want. And then in the first step, I spatula that on. You can use your palette knife or a little spatula or whatever. So nice generous layer. Now if you have lines in your stencil or little pieces that are very fine and stand out, try that you basically smooth your icing straight onto them to fill all that. Am I in the way for the camera?
Just your hair.
My hair. it can be a nice, generous layer of icing, because whatever the excess is, you're going to scrape it off afterwards. Just make sure you get all the details of the pattern. I find to use stencils quite exciting, but also a little bit frightening, because well, if it doesn't work out, you have basically ruined your cake. Unless you manage to scrape it off neatly enough. If you're unsure, you can always apply it on a flat surface first. Like, try out your stencil on a flat surface first. Like, you can even try it out on the table. It doesn't need to be on sugar paste, just to see where the tricky bits are. Okay, I think I have caught all that. Especially on the top, the design stops halfway through. On the top, we want to go all the way to the top. And then, to take the excess off, I have a plastic scraper here. You can use a metal one or whatever you have, and you basically run over it to take off the excess. And I go over it a few times, because if there is too much icing on, if you take the stencil off, you get kind of icing noses that stand out a bit far. And to an extent, you can dampen them down with the paintbrush, but it just looks. You see, I have a little booger here. Don't know whether you can see that on the camera. There is a little nib sticking out. That's that little bridge in the flower that came through the netting, and because I went against it, I enhanced that. So I should really scrape against it in the other direction. It's just because I'm right-handed, that's against my nature to go that way. Down here I can see that my my stencil is actually sitting a little bit away from the dummy. I will probably have a bleeder there that I have to fix once I take the stencil off. I'll show you that as well. Now, where was that little nib? Okay. So that's all the icing work done. I hope now that it worked the way I wanted it. So take the pins out.
You don't leave it at all?
No. Because you don't want it to start drying, because if you need to fix it with a paintbrush and a bit of water, or sometimes you might even, if there is very fine patterns in it, you might even use a toothpick or something just to clean it up a little bit. I have yet to perfect my stenciling that I don't need to do those repair works afterwards. That's where we got stuck here. And then your netting you can just rinse out in a bit of water later on with your stencil. When you're taking your stencil off, try that it kind of comes off in a controlled manner. Hold it on one side and lift it off carefully, because otherwise it might pop and ruin your design. So the noses that you can see on the bottom there, it's just where my icing hangs over a little bit. So I have some water here. Normally I would sit down for this now and you can just clean it up. I'm not quite sure how to do this now, so it's still just all the little bits that are hanging over. Now what you can do, I haven't done it with this stencil here now, but I would probably do it if it's a wedding cake or something that I'm doing. If your stencil comes up over the top, you can put sellotape or masking tape over the overhang here, and then you don't get this fuss on the top that you have to have everything neat here, because if you block the icing going through it there with masking tape, you get a cleaner finish here on the top. But I didn't do that tonight. So
Ellen, is there a particular masking tape you use?
no, because if I use it on the stencil, it's just it wouldn't touch the cake, so it can be any masking tape. And I know some cake decorators, they use masking tape straight on the cake to keep the stencil in place, but I found the method with the strip of parchment better, because you don't get any blemishes and none of the sticky residue stays on the surface of the cake. So that's how this stencil now looks in its plain form. And you can see here on this one, I have just enhanced it with a little bit of piped royal icing. Now this royal icing for piping is a little bit more liquid than what I have in the bowl there, because it's mainly dots and you want them to come out without the little nib on top. And what you can do then, when you have flower designs like these ones here, you could pipe in the center a few dots. You can also enhance the stencil with some bead work or something to let it look more like lace. You can pipe around the individual petals just to make the stencil look a little bit more three-dimensional, like three-dimensional embroidered lace. The tip I have on this here is a 1, and I'm just controlling the thickness of the line with the pressure. You could use a finer one as well if you wanted to. But if you look now here, this flower looks a little bit more enhanced and defined than the other ones. Or you could also connect the individual lace bits with those ridges that you find in lace as well, and connect them up if you wanted to. So that's pretty much all that there is to it. And there's lovely stencils out now. I've seen a few of Frieder's beside the one that I tried out there and this one here. And once you get over the fear of using them, it's actually quite a pretty and very quick method of doing your cakes. That was it.